All right, I'd like to call Policies and Priorities Committee meeting to order, Monday, September 13th, 2021. Approval of the agenda, please. Councillor Majinski.
And all the items in the September 13th, 2021 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting agenda be approved as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Norbury. All in favor? Approved, thank you. Adoption of the minutes, July 12th, 2021, Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes. Recommendation, please. Councillor Majinski.
That the Monday, July 12th, 2021 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Norbury. Any errors or omissions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Presentations and delegations, 4.1. Councillor, sorry, any business arising? Councillor.
So, just have a question, but I don't want to debate it, so I'd like to see brought back up for reconsideration, and that would be the motion that the Policy and Priorities Committee meeting in terms of reference proceedings is amended by meetings every second month. So I'd like to talk about it, but I mean, if we put the motion on the floor to reconsider it, we can debate it. I think we can.
We can reconsider the old motion, or we can make a new motion
Okay, well, you guys carried
to amend.
You guys carried it, so what I'm wondering, if we put a motion on the floor to reconsider, do we get to debate it before we vote? Or is it an instant vote?
Yes.
That way you know why I'm asking for you to reconsider it.
Staff, please.
I'll have Ms. Torvald respond.
Thank you.
So if you want to, the motion is past 30 days, so you cannot bring a motion back for reconsideration. However, you could rescind a motion. Should have looked more into this, but I don't believe you can debate minutes at this point. You the business arising, blah, blah, blah. If you want to bring something forward, just request it to go on the agenda.
Councillor.
So a motion was made to rescind that motion, it can be done at this meeting?
It's a committee meeting.
Look, I know we can't debate it, and I did that last time when I questioned it, because I was at the meeting that one time. So I questioned, I know, and then, we found out later, I shouldn't have done that, so that's why I'm trying to do it a different way so that we can get into discussion without, so that people understand where I'm coming from for reconsidered or rescinded or whatever. So I'll put a motion forward that we look at rescinding the motion that was made on
July 12th.
that was July 12th of 2021. And that's motion 2021-28-01.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Majinski. Discussion. Councillor Kirkhope.
So the reason I asked for that is I watched the meeting and listened to it, and then I came in and questioned staff. I actually talked to Ms. Thompson. This isn't even something that staff wanted. So I guess my concern is this something that the council wanted? So when I talked to Ms. Thompson, that's not what they were looking for. Like, the P&P is a breakdown meeting. We get to bring people in, or it's staff that brings reports together, like the one that's coming up with Northern Health in our agenda. Do we get to get right in depth and talk about it with staff involvement? By moving this meeting to every 2 months, I think we're going to backlog ourselves for when we add stuff like that to a P&P. We're waiting for it to come forward so we can actually break it down and get more in depth with some of that discussion. So I think it actually going to hurt our flow of the meetings. And my understanding from Ms. Thompson was the same concept from staff. This could hinder some of the stuff coming forward. So.
Okay. Councillor Majinski.
Yeah, I think when we did discuss this, I felt that it would be easier just to cancel a meeting than to just not have them. So, it'd be nice to put this back onto a regular agenda meeting and discuss it further.
Okay. Councillor Norbury.
Can we have clarification from staff? Because I remember this topic, and I remember, excuse me, Ms. Thompson, but I remember staff saying specifically that they were requested. So I'm a little confused.
I don't recall staff requesting them directly. I think the topic came up of my thoughts of within the month having the 2 regular meetings and the PPC every month leaves only 1 week for staff to actually work on anything besides the agenda. So I'd propose the idea of moving the PPC every 2 months to try and free up some staff time to tackle our fuel, I guess it is. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. I don't believe that it came from staff directly. Ms. Thompson, did you want to comment?
Thank you, Member Trent, through council. So when we're doing the PPC, I guess from staff, we would prefer that we cancel like a second council meeting. Like the second council meeting, and then we can always schedule them. But like Councilor Kirkowka did say, the PPC is the meat and potatoes where council, we can have more informal discussions at a policies and priorities committee meeting. And there's just more discussion that can be held rather than actual debate, and that gives us a chance to bring stuff back as well, and for us to know what council has as questions and priorities so that we can move forward on projects and have that discussion, because there is sometimes where we do need the clarity before we move forward.
Yeah, and believe me, I'm certainly not set in stone on this. It was an adjustment. It was also the summer schedule adjustment as well. So I'm certainly not set in stone on this. And if staff has a better suggestion, by all means, we can certainly bring this up. Councillor Kirkowka.
Yeah, and I agree that I actually think when we, whether this goes through or not, but when the meeting schedule comes forward in January by staff, I think we should look at the summer. Like, I don't disagree, like I understand why you did it, like I actually watched and kind of heard the same thing, it was the summer months. And I think we should look at that summer month thing where we, move some meetings off the schedule or whatever, it's one a month, or whatever it may be for the summer months, in regards to staff holidays, never mind staff and council as well. My problem I have is when it's P&P, you heard, is I think it's important to us to have that monthly meat and potatoes, as Ms. Thompson says, but it's the same as the regular meetings. I actually think you need 2 a month. My thoughts are on there. I guess maybe my opinion is different than the rest of council, but when we bring things forward, I honestly do not expect staff to bring that back. If it's at a P&P the next meeting, or if it was the regular meeting and a P&P, that some of the stuff in that first regular meeting should not be brought back to the second meeting anyways. So my philosophy there is staff's probably already preparing stuff for certain meetings. Like, when we had this PPA meeting, it was probably done early because we obviously they had time with being taken off one of the months. Even our regular meetings, they're probably working on it earlier than we all think anyways. So I think it's important to have. Maybe I'm wrong in that way, but I don't think it's wrong to have the PMP and 2 regular meetings a month. I seem to go back through all my agendas, except for the ones that were here and how heavy they are. Making motions after 8 o'clock to stay longer because we haven't gone through them all. So you start taking meetings away and our agenda's gonna get thicker. Sure, this one's very nice. It's a very short meeting package. That's just my thoughts on that.
Okay, Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Member Chen. It makes sense. I mean, I think we're trying to advocate for staff. And staff's advocating that this is a better way for them to do business. That's good. I do have a question in what we're doing right now. I apologize, but are we now going to be debating, are we now going to be voting on bringing this to a regular meeting? Or is this motion now we're going to bring back bring back the PMP?
No, this motion will be forwarded to a regular council meeting for debate. Yeah. Motions in the PPC have to go back to.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments? Councillor.
But it's not monetary. So I know, and it's monetary, it has to go back to a regular council meeting. But my understanding is we can make motions that are non-monetary and we actually move forward. I mean, my apologies, but that's my understanding even in terms of reference. So, I mean, if we're not don't want to see us go revert back to our meeting schedule that was set by, or brought forward by staff and set by council in January, we want to discuss this again at a regular meeting, I'm fine adding it as a motion. My thing is, we heard from staff already, they're saying the same concept.
Ms. Thompson, can we get some clarification, please? Sorry.
Sorry. Thank you, Member Trent. So this is the first PPC meeting that we have since we've changed our terms of reference to bring this back into a committee meeting. So as a committee meeting, the premise behind it is that any motions made do get forwarded to a regular council meeting for ratification. So the motions can be made forward, but then it should be ratified at a regular council meeting because we are moving these into more of a committee meeting that
motion at a regular council meeting.
This motion's made in the committee meeting is really a recommendation from the committee to council. Thank you. Okay, any other comments? All in favor of rescinding the previous motion? Carried, thank you. All right,
Do we have to make a motion to bring it back now as well then?
it will be, yeah. Presentations and delegations, we have CHEN, PENG, and Gabrielle DONOFF, WSP, OCP update to present the What We Heard report. And I believe we have them on the line.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, we are.
Hi there.
And so I heard at the beginning there's just some difficulty getting our presentation up. Was that, is it showing now?
It is, yeah.
Okay, great. So I'll just say next slide to Aline because we're doing this remotely, so there's a bit of logistical challenges.
All set.
Okay. So the voice behind the mirror here, it's Gabrielle Donoff. I saw many of you earlier today, and Chen and I also visited in July. So nice to be with you again. We are reporting back on what we heard during our engagement this past summer. Next slide. So just to review the project timeline, we kicked off at the beginning of April. In June, we did a bit of re-engagement just to understand how the community would like to engage and what topics they were interested in engaging on. And then the bulk of our engagement occurred through July and August, where we held a public survey online and also held several public engagement events in person. So those are the phases that we're reporting on right now. In September, once we compile all of this and we've heard your opinions on the visioning report, we will be drafting the OCP document and collecting feedback on that as well before December when we're aiming for adoption. Next slide. So the key questions when we're updating an OCP are really around things to help us understand what the community could be like in the next 20 years. So what will the major industry sectors be? What are the existing housing shortfalls and what will the housing needs be in the future? What is the future of Tumbler Ridge's tax base? How will Tumbler Ridge address local housing and food insecurity? And ultimately, what will the community need over the next 20 years? So next slide. To ask these questions, we based it around these 4 key questions at the workshop. What is working well? What needs to be addressed? What are some OCP guiding principles? And what is your vision for Tumbler Ridge? Next slide. So to ask these questions, we used a few different engagement tactics. As I mentioned, we held 2 online surveys, first the engagement survey in July, and then the wider community survey, just meaning we were asking more questions throughout that survey, which was held through July and August. When we were in Tumbler Ridge, we also met with council administration and held 3 workshops for Indigenous and community groups, business groups, and then a public open house. And from our time in Tumbler Ridge, we learned how important some of those major employers, namely the mines, are to Tumbler Ridge and understanding what the future population and needs will be. So since then, we've scheduled a few meetings. We met with Canuma and Anglo-American already, and we'll be meeting with Tech later this week. Just understand as much as we can, and they've already said they don't have crystal balls, but what some of their expectations are moving forward. Next slide. So a quick summary about what we heard is working well. Affordable housing in Tumbler Ridge came up a lot as something we really enjoy about living in the community. And it was so clear, especially when we came up to the community, that there's just a ton of local pride and community spirit. Safety came up a lot. Tourism and the increase in tourism recently was seen as very positive. So many recreational opportunities in the area and a well-designed community. It's been acknowledged several times that Tumbler Ridge is a planned community, and the residents really appreciate that and understand that. With great access to green space and, of course, the geoparks being seen as a huge asset. Next slide. In terms of opportunities, we did hear that there's room for an increase in tourism even beyond what's happening right now. Of course, wildfire safety was top of mind. This summer was a big wildfire year across BC. Many people talked about needing to attract and keep nurses and teachers in the area. I know this is beyond municipal scope, but we just wanted to reflect what we heard a lot of in our discussions with community members. Improving internet connectivity, of course, is a way to promote workers to Tumbler Ridge, providing more local retail services, diversifying the local economy, providing more rental housing, and I know this came up in our visioning report discussion, so that did come up through our engagement. A reminder, it's not a census of the community. We didn't ask every single person if they thought there was more rental housing needed, but it was a theme that came up in the engagement data that we collected. And of course, part of that is just generally diversifying housing, which would either be the type of housing and lot size generally. Next slide. So when we asked about guiding principles, there's really what principles does the community need to follow in decision making to achieve the future Tumbler Ridge that everyone's envisioning? We asked that directly, and we also combed through the rest of what we collected on the screen as a photo of one of the time capsule sheets that we worked on. There are a few themes that really came through, and this is what we have proposed as the guiding principles for the OCP document. So stability, number one, sustainability, diversity, partnership, proactiveness, and equity. And that vision report discusses a bit more about what each of these would mean, but just so that you know, they are really anchored in what we heard from the community. So I wanted to go just into, next slide. There should be a graph on the screen. Just to highlight three of the main key themes. There are a few more listed in the What We Heard report, but these are the ones that really stood out that I thought you'd be interested in. So number one, housing affordability, variety, and density, of course. So when we asked what are the most important factors when considering housing in your community, number one was the cost of housing, and reflected in the fact that people do feel that housing is quite affordable, but that's obviously top of mind for everybody. Size of lot, of course, we talked about people looking to have a variety of lot sizes, and then things about the size of house, type of dwelling, that kind of thing. Next slide. So when we asked about housing options that have the potential to increase housing affordability and housing choice and support aging in place in Tumbler Ridge, number one suggestion that we received was to develop townhomes in existing neighborhoods as a way to diversify housing type, that there could be areas for tiny homes, and then other typical things like adding garage space or building apartments and that kind of thing. Next slide. The other key theme was about economic development and diversity. So number one suggestion for how we could diversify Tumbler Ridge's economy was around tourism and recreation. And some other ideas came in around local businesses and more of a self-sufficiency in Tumbler Ridge, and some opportunities around arts and culture, as well as other ideas around regional collaboration, that kind of thing. Next slide. And then cost of living in Tumbler Ridge. So people are concerned about lack of opportunities that provide disposable income for daily needs, the cost of starting a business, and housing prices. And I think that's around the stability and knowing that housing prices will stay similar into the future and budgeting for that. And there are a few other suggestions given as well, which are detailed in the report. Next slide. So in terms of a vision for 2041, we've already shared the vision that we drafted based on this, but some of the key themes that came up were around maintaining the natural beauty of Tumbler Ridge. Nobody wants that to change. Really welcoming and encouraging families to stay in Tumbler Ridge so that there will be second, third, fourth generation Tumbler Ridgians into the future. Diversifying housing, diversifying the local economy, providing stable employment, and ultimately that people can meet their daily needs in Tumbler Ridge. Next slide. So in terms of next steps, what we're doing with this information, we are sharing back what we heard with the community and have shared, and we will use what we've heard and the feedback on the visioning report to draft the OCP document, which we will then share with council, administration, and the community as well, and collect some more feedback on that document before we create a final document to go to council for adoption. And the last slide is just a thank you. So thank you so much for your time. As I said, there's more details in the What We Heard report itself, but I'm happy to answer any questions now.
Thank you very much, Gabrielle. Council, any questions? Councillor Kirkowka.
Yeah, I just have one. How many people came out here in person?
We had about 20 people come to the open house, and at the workshop, there's about 7 to 10 people in total.
Follow-up, Councillor? Any other questions, Councillor Madinsky?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. In the report, you said that you were reaching out to industry. You identified 3 of the coal companies, but have you reached out to any of the oil and gas or wind farm companies? Because we're not just reliant on the coal industry, we have quite a few others in our region.
Yeah, we started there based on large employers in the region, but I will just defer to CHEN if she's still on the line, if she's the one reaching out, if we've reached out to anybody else.
Can I add a comment there? This is Chen.
Please.
Yeah, yes, please.
Yeah. The 3 mining company, that was the additional engagement, because originally when we set up this business owners workshop, the invitation actually sent out to everyone in the region, like for business owners, like if they come back and if they join us, that would be great. That's the formal engagement event they should be attending. However, because we figured out that the major employers with the town that they didn't show up, so we kind of contacting them one by one. So the oil and gas, I assume in that first round of engagement, they already received the invitation, but they just not showing up.
Okay.
So yeah, so basically they have the invitation. They just didn't show up there.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Any other comments, questions, Council? Okay, thank you very much for your time, Chen and Gabriel. I appreciate it.
Thank you
Great.
for having us.
Have a good evening. Bye.
As well, thank you.
Participant exiting.
Gabrielle Donoff, WSP.
Okay, moving on to
Participant exiting.
Chen from WSP.
Healthcare Services in Tumbler Ridge. Report dated September 13th, 2021 from Chief Administrative Officer with opportunity to discuss the healthcare services in Tumbler Ridge. I'll make the recommendation for discussion. Seconder, Councillor Kirkauka. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So yeah, we have a UBCM call with Northern Health's, I believe, Chief Executive Officer coming up here on Wednesday, I believe. Council, we've definitely talked about the challenges we've had. Just wondering what we want to put down for our 3 topics. Councillor Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor. From the public, I've heard with the call-in system to booking appointments has been a big concern and a hurdle, as well as the 911 service. And I've heard that people have been on hold on the 911 call-in, which is unacceptable, to say the least. So I want to make sure that that gets addressed, and that should be a #1 priority.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirkauka.
Yeah, I have a couple things, just some clarity from Councilor Majinski. So 901 being on hold is not Northern Health. That's very concerning, for sure. Just curious, is it often, seldom? Hearing it from 1 or 2, hearing it from many?
I've heard
This
it.
is something we need to address ASAP in regards to, I know there was some concern when that big heat wave was here in regards to not enough staff at the center. So right now, everything from 901 goes to the island and then back from the island. So our dispatch, so can't talk about fire, but BCMs has a dispatch center in Kamloops. That's who we were connected with when I worked for BCMs. Still believe it's true. So it would go all the way to that island, be answered there, and then switch back to Kamloops. So I was just curious on the timing of those, because that's huge, and that's not Northern Health, but to me, I guess in the PNP we're not give direction, but we could put a motion forward to bring to the next meeting so we can get proper direction to staff to contact to them to find out what's going on, because that's a total different scenario, and that's very concerning.
Yeah, and I think maybe it was a transfer from Northern Health call Maybe, because if they say it's emergency, call 911, and then they will transfer you. It might have been on hold then. I know of 2 instances, but I probably look into it a bit more. But either way, even if it's on Northern Health and they're calling in for medical assistance within the community and you're put on hold, that shouldn't happen either. Because maybe it is a medical emergency. How do you know? But that's what you call first. So.
Councillor Kirkowka.
I know I've brought up, and Councilor Lehman's not here, we had a discussion in regards to the health task force in regards to the phone system over there and how it was working. My understanding that's been fixed.
Okay.
But if it's not, we need to know about that, because to me, that's what we hammer them in the northern, and that doesn't mean we can't hammer them in this meeting, but that's what I go after locally with Councilor Lehman, is those kind of scenarios when I hear about them. But my understanding is the phone system has been fixed over there. Yes, it's still automated. You know, whether you push numbers, I apologize, I haven't called, or you just wait and eventually. But I know I've seen comments made. I mean, social media, obviously, but being taking forever to get through.
Yeah.
But my understanding from Melanie is that has been fixed, and staff was in the meeting that day. So if it isn't, we should definitely.
Fair.
Please.
And so when was this rectified? Because it would be probably pertinent information so that we could pass it on to public. Because if I've heard instances where people have been on hold with Northern Health or getting reamed out for not knowing the civic address of our local clinic while being on hold on the phone, because we have to Google it to say, okay, we're going to dispatch a emergency vehicle to you instead of going to your home, and you're sitting outside the front of the clinic, even though it is on the front of the door, but you go to the emergency and it's not on the front of the emergency door. So, there are a little bit of inconsistencies there, but if it was within the last week, then okay. But if it was 2 weeks ago, then no go.
So
Councillor.
that was done in July.
Okay, yeah, no.
Coming up with a plan in regards to the calling 911 on the phone, because I know I've heard that actually a resident called me, or actually comes up at the store and talked to me in regards to not having the address to use your cell phone, right? So when you use your cell phone, it's located to the nearest tower. It's not an address. So that was concern, and when the last meeting we had, Melanie was here, Dr. Helm, the intern overview for the doctor at the clinic is Dr. Temple. She was on the phone as well. And they were supposed to come up with some kind of criteria, whether it's on the door or the side of the wall. Wasn't sure, again, that's not my job to dictate where they put signage. But that was something we hammered them with, because I heard about it then, Councillor.
Okay. Yeah, and to follow up on that, like, if you're calling in, and it may not be an emergency or not, but you do need medical assistance, why are you arguing with a dispatcher about where the location is, where you have to be? That should be, if the dispatcher's at a computer, they can do a simple Google search. When the individual on the phone calling in is in distress, and why you're making it more stressful for them, right? So that should be noted, as well as instead of, how does a dispatcher dictate whether they should transfer you to a nurse on the phone or to see medical attention immediately? How do they make that dictation on a phone? And that's what's happened. And I don't think that's acceptable either. So you're sitting on hold for 5 minutes, waiting to get transferred to a nurse instead of seeing medical attention. That shouldn't happen either. That's not the choice of somebody on the phone. That's either up to the individual that's in distress or the parent or whoever it may be. If they want to be seeing medical attention, they should get it.
Okay. The call-in system at the clinic, problems with dispatcher, and possible problems with the 911 service being on hold. Any others? Councillor Kirkowka.
So this is directly with Northern Health. I think we should, I know they can't give us all the criteria, but we've asked for it. I know Ms. Thompson's received the contract the last time I asked, and the last meeting was that. But I know they can't give us the exact breakdown, but I'd like to hear when they have their exit interviews. What is being mentioned then? Like we've asked for it just about every meeting we have with the health task force. Bit of a runaround, maybe we can actually get something from these guys. What is the reasoning on the exit interviews that nurses are leaving? Whether it's nurses, labs, x-ray, to me that's all one. I mean, right now we haven't lost any positions as of late, which is great news, but I mean, my understanding, and I mean, obviously I've been gone for a bit, But my understanding is we're shorting on some nurses again. I've sent an email, but I haven't heard back. That's kind of what I've heard rumor of.
I believe the agency nurses are still filling the void.
But, you know, if they have all these positions and stuff and offering, and I know we're waiting for staff to come back in regards to that, and, you know, no disrespect to staff, we actually just got the contract, I believe, not even 3 weeks ago, maybe it was a little bit longer, but, you know, that took just about 2 months to get that from Northern Health. You know, I mean, no disrespect to the lady that we deal with on the task force, but when they're there, maybe those are a couple questions we can ask. The exit interview is an important one, I think, to find out, is it the work-life balance like we all think? We're like, I know it is, but is that what it is? Or is there other scenarios that we're not thinking?
But we're not, I would say, on an organizational standpoint, I wouldn't think that we would be privy to that information unless we had an incredibly good working relationship or collaborative working relationship. I don't think any organization would willingly divulge that kind of information to a municipality in that sense, because it could potentially open up some gaps in their systems that we're just going to hammer them on. Why would they tell us that their biggest exit interview response is work-life balance? That's not something they're going to tell us. Councillor.
I still think it's valuable information. I mean, to me, I'll hammer them. Just keep asking it. And the reason I say that, we sat in this council meeting, made a motion and voted on favor of waiting for this contract to come forward to see how it was written. We're talking about offering a ton of taxpayer dollars as a yearly bonus to get nurses here. We talked about that on, I don't want to pick the date, that was voted on to do that.
To propose
Right?
proposals, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, like if we're looking at first, like the Northern Health offers it to one, we're willing to offer it to, if we need 3. So to me, if that's the case, maybe they don't have enough positions. So if they're willing to fund the 1 with that bonus, we're able to fund 3. Now we have a work-life balance, and maybe we retain the nurses here. But that's a very, like, I mean, that's what I'm hearing lots in regards to is the nursing and lab and X-ray. I know we've had to go on diversion due to having no X-ray techs. I understand people take time off; they have courses, so it's not battling them. But you know, that's one of the things mentioned in this report when you go through some of the survey results was healthcare. And you're seeing it constantly, healthcare. Like, you know, we're trying to get retain residents and attract residents. And anytime that somebody is looking to maybe possibly move to our community, healthcare is one of the things that first come up. It's not the education, it's not retail, it's health. And to me, we need, as a council, it's our number 1 priority. We say so. It's time to hammer these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to work in, like, I want to be a partner. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to, you know, we're all right and they're always wrong. That's not what I'm looking for. But I mean, if we're giving the honest side from our council side and staff side, the community need to be honest so that we can work through it to try and find and resolve it for our community. I do care about Dawson and Chatwood and Fort St. John because we have lots of patients that go there. But my more concern here is our residents.
Absolutely. Yeah. Councillor Majinski.
Just to follow up with Councillor Kauko as well, it doesn't just affect our community. It's affecting what we're trying to accomplish here is tourism. So if somebody needs medical assistance because they had an accident on their ATV while they're visiting here and they can't get assistance, they got to get diverted to Dawson, they're not going to have a very good experience here and they're not going to talk well about our community. So it's not just locally, it's regionally and wherever these people may come from, whether it's winter or summer. And also, where are all these positions posted? That should be another major question is, where are these nurses and doctors and where are their positions posted? Is it just on a Northern Health website? Do we have it posted on ours? Where can we see what positions are available? What need to be filled? Are they all filled now? I don't think so.
Okay, that's a question we can ask, yeah. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. You know, on the topic at hand of information regarding nurses leaving, I think it is important for us to get information on how we can work together with Northern Health without them betraying, like well, the exit interview is kind of like an HR process, right? And it's like they're in a world of confidentiality and information sharing and sometimes information protection. I mean, I think there's valid points in both sides, but I think it is important for us to, where can we fill the gap? If you've identified an issue that you as a health authority cannot fill, tell us. We can help you, right? We're incentivized to do that. Can I make a suggestion for a topic? one of the things that I've been noticing for a number of years is the lack of youth and early years development professionals in our community. Like we have to go out of town. There's not anybody available, and we're seeing our demographic growing in that regard of we're having a lot of young families, a lot of young children. It'd be nice to see if we can get more professionals in on a rotational basis. Like we have speech therapy coming regularly, and identifying those areas that are in need and need more. We need more people coming in for speech therapy. You know, it'd be good to have an ophthalmologist coming in for children or these other areas, because it is a burden for people to go to Grand Prairie, they're going to Prince George, or what I would hope is something we can give them here on a part-time basis, right? Because we don't need a full-time person. We just need maybe once a month, once a quarter.
Yep. Yeah, and Northern Health is starting to expand those, I would say, soft services, I guess, within the region. For example, a physiotherapist is now in the region, I believe. So, yeah, that's a good topic as well. Councillor Majinski.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Can we ask the question about transportation between communities with Northern Health? I know they have that as one of the topics, and see how that can benefit our community, especially if we have to go out of town for said topics. Also, if I may bring up the incentive of money that we've brought up as well. Has it been actually beneficial? How has this actually worked? What have we seen? Have we seen the benefits of it in any which way? Whether it's because we have had an agency nurse here or not, but has it retained or had them come back again? Like, has it been reoccurring agency nurses, or has it always been a continuing different agency nurse every time? They're just pulling straws from wherever they can. I just don't know if these incentives should come to a halt and see how that goes. I don't know.
We're not currently incentivizing at the moment. Staff is working on putting together a proposal for an incentive. The last incentive we put forward, I don't believe it was acted upon. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you, Member Trent. It was actually activated on when the correspondence and the resolution was sent to Northern Health. It was for an agency nurse that comes for 2 or more weeks, and we received an invoice after the fact for the $4,000 for 4 weeks, but it was not the same agency nurse. So at that time, staff just paid that bill.
Okay.
Promised, and we did have agency nurses that came in, but it wasn't for 2 weeks or more.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Majinski.
And I believe the agency nurses were utilizing our accommodation as well. Is that correct?
I believe so. Ms.
So
Thompson.
that's not just a monetary value as well. That's also an additional service that we provide, or I guess service that we provide for them.
Yep. Okay. Councillor Krakauka.
Yeah, so it wasn't supplied to the agency nurses. We have a condo that's actually supplied to North Health. So it's not just for agency nurses. It could be for doctors, it could be for a speech therapist that comes up. So I won't say it's mandated that we have one condo available for Northern Health all the time, but through the task force, that was kind of previous to myself being on council the first term. That's why these condos were bought, to do that. And my understanding is that one's kind of set aside for Northern Health. There is a second unit. I know Northern Health has approached staff, so approached Ms. Thompson. If it was available, could they use it? And I believe Ms. Thompson has, allowed them to use it here and there. The second one, not just the first one, the second one. And I had to kick them out if she needed it. So to me, when we bought those condos, that's what it's to be used for. To me, I'd rather see doctors, nurses in there, contractors, whatever it may be, staff, if it's needed, new staff's hired, enough from the community and need somewhere to stay for a few weeks. To me, that's why the previous councils bought these condos, not to have them sitting empty. So yeah, it's an incentive, but to me, that's where the partnership comes in, right? They believe they pay the cleaning fee. So to me, that's a partnership from councils previous to ours that are saying, hey, listen, we know there's a need, and this is an option. I mean, we could possibly be attracting a new doctor. No, nobody's heard back, but as of July of next year, and that could be one of the things that maybe makes her decide here, is that there could be a place for them to stay when they first come, so they don't have to try and buy a house in their first week. So I think that's a good thing. You can call it an incentive. I think it's called partnership.
Okay, Councilor Majinski?
Yeah, I would say this is an added benefit as well in condos. I don't know if we're offering up gym passes while they're here or stays like that as well, or access to the golf course or whatever. But these are all things that our community is doing to try to retain somebody here that maybe other communities aren't doing. So we should show them that we're trying to work very well with them and what we're doing here to really keep them here, to stay. It might not be a negative thing that we're going to have on our list, but we should at least show that we're doing as much as we can and work with this collaboration. So, we have the condo, we have a monetary value, we do have the community center, we have lots for them, right? So, should be.
I agree. I think we're doing above and beyond what's expected. And we've given Northern Health many opportunities to provide that information to us. We've asked them, what can we do? What do you need? What aren't you able to supply? There hasn't been a lot coming back, to be honest. So, yeah.
Is there any thought that they might be abusing a little of this? Like if they're taking the condos for an extended period of time, is that acceptable? Or do we eventually start charging them and say, yeah, we'll give you a condo for 2 weeks while it's a residency nurse here for that time period, but you've asked for 6 weeks. We're going to start billing you out instead of,
Ms. Thompson, there has been uptake on the second condo. Are you feeling any feelings of abuse or taking advantage of?
Thank you, Member Trent. Originally, it was for 1 week, and I think back in the beginning of July. And at this time, the condo's been booked almost full for the second condo for August and September. And there was a request for all of October as well. And I did pull back at that time because I'm anticipating that the district may need use of it here coming out in October. So what started out as a assist turned into full-time. The second condo is being used by Northern Health. Abuse or not, I don't know. I do sometimes question how much assistance the district does give. That Northern Health, we seem to give them an inch and they take a mile. There's other requests that come in that for, I know there was a request for the recycling garbage cans because Northern Health only has maintenance staff that comes in 1 day a week, and they were asking if the district would provide residential recycling to them because it takes them too long to sort and have to go down to the transfer station to recycle. And it wasn't, is there a charge? It was like, would the district provide this to Northern Health? So it's not only on condos and staying there for staff, and now it's like there's
Added services. Okay, thank you. Councillor, follow up?
No, thank you for that explanation, and maybe we should address that as well in some way of saying, okay, what are you expecting from us? Do you think this is acceptable for occupying one of our condos for 2 months, all summer?
Well, and that's the age-old question, I think, too. What are their expectations of us? I mean, the expectation of a municipality to put up a financial incentive plus provide housing for a basic medical service, I think is reaching in a lot of ways. So
Does this happen in southern BC? No.
I think it's happening all over at the moment because that's the environment that we've been putting. Yeah, whether it's right or wrong, it's the environment that we put in, and we're putting the priority of our medical system at the top of the line. So, we're trying as much as we can do to not only attract, but try and retain, but maybe our resources are better spent in other directions. I'd like to address the dependency on Northern Health on agency nurses. I think I think you're backing yourself into a corner in that situation. I know it's a temporary fix at the moment, and the regional district scholarship program plus the ministry has put a high degree of attention on nursing schooling in the north here, that with the new program in Fort St. John, as well as throughout the province. But with any type of education, you're going to see 2 or 3 year lag before those students are educated. So in the meantime, the strategy is agency nurses, and it sure appears to me that nurses are wanting to work for the agencies rather than the health authorities. So I'd like to know the long-term strategy instead of the short-term. So I don't know if council wants to talk about the dependency on agency nurses at the moment, or Councillor Kirkauka.
Yeah, I think you can, that's definitely a good topic, but the problem there is too, is not being able to have a meeting with Ministry of Health. Because let me tell you, it's not Northern Health relying on agencies.
No, it's the province.
Coastal Health, it's Island Health.
The province.
Like, I have a cousin that works on Vancouver Island as a nurse, and I had an opportunity to be able to actually get to visit her after being, her working so long. Half the hospital, there's agency nurses right now. So it's not just Northern Health. So,
Oh, no.
So like,
No.
that's the problem. Like, to me, this is a great question for the Ministry of Health. And it doesn't mean just because we didn't get a meeting with him through the UBCM that we don't draft a letter. Like, they're the ones that fund these health
Authorities.
authorities. So, maybe it's time to ask them what they're funding and not funding. Like, we have opportunities, I've heard of opportunities that people have passed up because certain things can't happen within our own treatment center. Whether it's having certain equipment fixed or bought. The one that we have is the ultrasound equipment is not working. So this doctor didn't want to come here no more. Stuff like that, not having the proper stuff for intubation. Right? Pretty much basic tools. So, I mean, we're supposed to have a health task force meeting here in August, and for some reason, the individuals from Northern Health all had it as it was canceled. So we had to cancel it through staff, which seemed weird. So, the next one should be a good one. But there's some asks from Northern Health in this next one too. So that'll be coming back from council. I don't want to get too much into it to hear about it. But yeah, I think it's not just 8 agency nurses in Northern Health. It's all health.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
To me, the government seems to be relying on these, and the problem when you rely on a aspect of that is they will all go to agency nursing because they can do a 2 to 3 week stint, take the 2 weeks off, come back for 3, work for 6, take 6 off, whatever it may be, where you can't get that working in a facility or with any of the health regions. Right? So, I mean, it's more bang for your buck. You're getting paid more.
Yeah, it's definitely a long-term concern, in my opinion. Any other topics? Councillor
So we talk
Kirkauka.
about retention and stuff, and I mean, I understand in regards to your comments in regards to the next interview, but maybe there should be some talk about partnering up for when they go to colleges and stuff. They obviously have a committee, a hiring committee, liaisons and stuff like that. Like Daphne, she deals with the doctor's side, and she's actually approached Northern Health to say that she will help them with the nursing issue. She's still waiting to get, I don't say approval, but see what their opinion is of that. So maybe this is an opportunity to ask them. I know Fort St. John's already doing it. With going to these colleges and the schooling and stuff like that, and approaching some of these students that are coming out. Maybe this is where we can get on with Northern Health and do it. Or we just step out of the boundaries and we'll do it ourselves like Fort St. John does. Whether we reach out to Fort St. John, ask them what their criteria is, how they came up with the concept of doing it, and what kind of funds they have put to the side for that. And to me, Tumbler is important to us. I mean, or it is to me, especially when it comes to healthcare, mental health, all that. Like, counseling is very tough in this community. Not enough. I mean, you mentioned in regards to speech therapists, but there's all those other ones too, whether it's youth, child, adult.
Yep.
It's a very important thing. And to me, before I moved to the community, Tumbler Ridge had everything. The mines went down, Tumbler Ridge had lost a lot of those services. When the mines did come back on, before Canoe maybe came in, but when the other mines were operating, that stuff never came back. Once you lose it, you forget about you. So it seems weird.
Yep. Any other topics? I think we can Write this down, Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I would like to, hit again on the point Councillor Kalka mentioned, that is mental health support. I mean, I think that should be its own situation. And I think to add to the realm of mental health, physical mental health support, in-person mental health support, not just over the phone. Like, I know they're moving a lot of this stuff digital, which makes sense for resource allocation. But when it comes down to people's experience, not everyone in our community has the capacity to get help that way. They're not familiar with it, and it's not effective. So again, it would be good, even if we just had a rotation, somebody come in a couple times a week, and that it can't be put onto our nurses. Because these people that need mental health support, sometimes their nurses are put into positions where that trust is broken and they cannot be effective at what they're doing. So I think mental health support to suit Tumbler's needs versus a general blanket of what their strategy is.
I agree. It's very lacking and very challenging. I personal experience with that side of things as well, and you definitely have to travel to access the services. So I agree to trying to have a counseling session over the computer is not very effective at all. So yeah, that's a very important one, and I think it should be a very hot topic within the province. Councillor Majinski.
One other item that has been brought to my attention by members of the public is that they have had the loss of trust with the doctors. I'd like to have that on as a topic item.
Yeah, we have mentioned that before, and I'm thinking maybe a possible solution could be mentoring by the new chief of staff. Dr. Helm was previously chief of staff and took over that mentoring role, but with his departure now, our new one, I believe, is Dr. Temple, interim. Yeah, I think it's a matter of bringing that topic up and seeing what kind of support they can do internally. Councillor Perkalka.
Yeah, so just on that come up in our task force lots. It actually comes into you guys' regular agenda about it. And there's actually some comments and information in those task force meetings that come into your agenda. And it's in regards to that. I don't know when, maybe we can stock some of the minutes and supply them, but there's some information in there in regards to that. And the procedure of following along. And the minutes, the problem with that is the minutes are on our regular agenda, so they're open to the public. So there's actually information on there what the steps can be taken when residents or patients have concerns with Northern Health, whether it be the doctor's side or whatever, but specifically the doctors. The steps that they can take personally as a patient. Whether it's calling the doctor directly, going to the Northern Health one, and if not Northern Health, they can go right to the physician. So,
It's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see how many reports they have gotten at Northern Health and what they've done to rectify the problem. Because if it's a continuing issue, and they're always in your meetings, why hasn't anything been done about it?
Yeah.
So,
As far as I understand, they have tried to address the time factor. Originally during COVID, they were looking at half-an-hour appointment times. They've cut those back to 20 minutes now to try and speed up the process or the amount of appointments during the day. They have started to make some adjustments as far as efficiencies go, and I think they're starting to pay off now, from what I understand from Dr. Helm previously. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. To Councillor Emergency's comments, I've had to deal with this personally a few times. I'm like, where is that pressure relief valve, so to speak? Right? Like, somebody has an issue, where do they take it, right? And like, they're in my discussions with individuals and the healthcare professionals, like, there may be a lack of communication on what pathway they go, but there is a system of complaint resolution, and the individuals themselves have not been able to navigate that or chosen not to. That's one of the biggest issues. And like, I know speaking with Dr. Helm, in that I've received multiple complaints, but he hasn't heard a single thing. So it's like, people do need to take a little bit of ownership on their issues and they need to take it to the proper authorities. Maybe there is ways we can advertise it better, but there is I think, an expectation on the individual. They should be taking that, the complaint to the proper authorities.
Counselor.
I think there's a lot of fear there too with the confidentiality and say you have an issue or a complaint and then you have to explain what had happened. Well, they can pinpoint that to who exactly that person was, even if it wasn't that, confidential, because not every diagnosis is the same, and maybe it was a misdiagnosis or whatever, right? And you want to bring that forward. But they don't feel comfortable to do that, and maybe they're very sick. Why would they want to go through all this paperwork and back and forth phone calls and sending emails and writing and signing letters and saying, well, why would anybody want to do that when they're super sick? Like, if you have a complaint, let it be known and not have any fear to have it rectified, and it could be something simple like waiting 25, 30 minutes for what? When nobody's there, you didn't even get asked to get help, you're just waiting. That's not fair either, But and if it's it may seem minor to anybody else, but maybe to that individual, maybe they're in an excruciating amount of pain, but why would you write in a letter and complain about it? Like it's to every individual,
Counselor Kirkowka.
If they don't, so I had the same scenario, so we brought it up to task force, we talked in our minutes, don't matter what meeting. Well, I get all these complaints from here from the public, so I bring it up. Dr. Helm's sitting there, I haven't heard a thing. We're the health representative. Well, what's it all about? Well, I don't have all the details. I don't want to get into that resident's information. So, I get they're complaining about it. I don't have all the information right then. So I reached out to the same couple individuals, said, here you go, here's some numbers. They've yet to this day called to put a complaint in. So if a person wants rectification on it, they got to complain. They've got to do their due diligence and go back to it. I get they want to come to us and say, well, I'll hammer Northern Health in a meeting there in the task force. But if they don't go and complain, they're not going to take our side. Like Northern Health's not going to listen to us because we're not the actual patient. We don't have all the information, all the exact details. I personally wouldn't want those.
Right.
So I know of someone else that I sat in a meeting with, a resident from Tumbler Ridge. We had I was asked to join on residents' behalf, to go there. Didn't feel comfortable about. I'm not sure. I've been away, but I haven't had a chance to touch base. But to me, there was quite the lengthy email, step by step, what was done. Like it was done very professional from both sides. The resident had detail, and then their response was detailed on what the action should be, like how they're going to try and resolve that. So that was from them, right? So it's hard for us to take the complaint there. The individuals actually have to. And that's my thoughts on this. I have no problem listening and complaining that we're not doing it, or there's people don't have trust in our doctors or faith in our doctors or their diagnosis. Those individuals are really the ones that have to call the line, email the complaint line through Northern Health so they can get rectified because we don't have all the information. And I found that bringing it up in the meeting. I felt kind of like when Dr. Helm said, before Dr. Helm left, we were advertising. People come to me or whatever, it was actually in our agenda that they could call Dr. Helm directly. He'd be willing to listen to those. I mean, now he's no longer the chief of staff, so there is other procedures, right? It's right on Northern Health's website.
Yeah, and I hear those concerns from residents when they have issues or whatever, and it's like, well, yeah, you gotta, do the work yourself, but sometimes when they're very sick and ill, it's probably the last thing on their mind is to bitch and complain to somebody. They just want to get the treatment that they need, and so I think that should just be known, that they have to have an easy way, or complaint line or whatever.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more advertising of the
just some more awareness,
resources, right?
And there's a bit of confidentiality there too.
For sure, yeah. Okay, I think we've got a pretty good topic list here. What do we have, half an hour?
20 minutes.
20 minutes? Oh, I can get through that, no problem. Okay, any other final thoughts? Right, moving to 5.2, Strategic Priorities Chart Update. Report dated September 13th, 2021 from the Chief Administrative Officer with the Strategic Priorities Chart Update. Recommendation, please. Councillor Kirkowka.
The strategic priority chart be approved as amended.
Seconder. Councillor Majinski, discussion. Councillor Kirkowka.
Well, I'll say one, I think it's very tough, and thanks to staff to bring this forward. I don't think that's an easy thing for staff to bring forward and suggest that, we I believe when we set the budget, it was a no-brainer to all get done, blah, blah, blah. No offense to staff, I mean, I think it's really on you to bring it forward and say, hey, there's some concerns, we have some issues, and there's some stuff that has to be held off, or deleted by a bit. I think when staff brings that back, that's why I did the second recommendation after this one to discuss it. Discuss it in regards to the debate, so hats off for staff to realize there needs to be some stuff pushed back, and there we go. I mean, there's some things that aren't even up, it's not even that they can do it, their hands are tied on some of the stuff I read through.
Absolutely, I agree. We've certainly seen a big transition over the last, year and a half for sure. So it is limiting on what staff can develop, and that's partly the reason why I wanted to look at the meeting schedule as well. But right now, I believe it's personnel or lack thereof at the moment. So thank you, absolutely. I had a couple of questions on a couple of the projects here. On page 68, the IT and sound systems upgrade for June 2021, that has been completed, or I'm just wondering what part of that, or which area is that part of? Ms. Thompson.
Thank you, Member Trent. So that is the AV for council chambers, and actually the RFP was just awarded on Friday. And therefore, a meeting is scheduled this week to discuss in more detail, and then there will be some information brought back to council on council's requirements, because we've got the regular system, and then you've got a little bit more.
The BMW.
So, yeah, then you've got, there's a little bit more with it. So I do have a meeting scheduled this week, and then options will be brought back to council on what system that you would prefer.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Museum roof repairs, is that capacity?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So the museum roof, it's been on the list. I think this is the second year it is on here with the changeover in staff that I did have. That file, we have to find it and see where it is and be able to create an RFP to do the repairs. So it will need to be pushed off to 2022 because it is late in season to do it, but it will be on the capital list for 2022 and a priority.
Okay, thank you. The Economic Resiliency Task Force, I'm thinking we can shut that committee down at the moment. We haven't met for quite a few months. So I don't see the need at this point to continue. So I'll make a motion to discontinue the Economic Resiliency Task Force, effective immediately. Councillor Kirkauka, if there's a second. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor
Don't we
Nobre.
already have a motion on the floor to accept it as
Accept.
amended? We already have.
Oh, my
Motion on the
apologies.
floor.
Yes.
I know Councilor Kirkauka, but
Thank you.
if we want to make amendments, maybe we should actually defeat the motion to accept it. Then let's get a discussion about
Yeah.
what we want to amend.
No, I can do that motion later. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, and so just clarification, I think on one more. Oh yes, the log signpost installation, currently on hold. I think the next step for that, Ms. Thompson, is a meeting between Kelly Lake and McLeod Lake and ourselves. Those are the two opponents that had concerns with that installation. So I think, is there any plans for that at the moment, or Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I will be away at the end of the month, so I was hoping to schedule a meeting in October with yourself and the First Nations that have concerns.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Yeah, that's all the questions I had. Any other discussion on the strategic priorities chart? Councilor Jeanson.
Well, I went line by line today with the CAO today, so I just want to thank her for the time because we've spent quite a bit of time discussing every single one on here, and glad that you brought all of them up there, so. Same questions I had, so nothing.
Well, and realistically, that list is an add-on to the strategic priorities chart, because I don't know if there's maybe 5 things on that list that's actually on this. So I think in the future, we really need to focus on this strategic priorities chart and try not to add more, or at least stick to this work plan at least. Okay, all in favor of the motion? Carried. 5.3, let's talk, council discussion on potential date for a let's talk. Any ideas, council? Or thoughts? Councilor Kirkcalka?
Not to keep pushing this off. We're missing 3 councils.
Councilors?
Councils, we're missing 3 councils. I'd hate to set a date, and there's 4 of us and not 7. It's like, you know, I mean, this could be something we just add to the next the next meeting agenda. Hate to carry it over, but whether that's a motion that needs to be done or staff can just do that, but then hopefully, there's not all 7 here, but there's 6 of us. I mean, it's a little nicer when you can have a majority of council and let's talk.
Absolutely. So obviously I'm hearing council is committed to having a let's talk this fall. Virtually or non? Councilor Norbury?
Not virtually if possible.
In person, yeah. I agree, it's needed. Councilor Kirkcalka?
So just with that, in person, would we not be concerned if we hit a certain number?
Capacity issue?
Right, so is there a way of, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, when it's pre-registered, I mean,
I don't agree.
I don't disagree with you in person, but, you know, maybe we can do both, have it in person, but have it live. You know, I mean, it sucks to do with the chamber, but maybe there's a way of live streaming, what do they call it? Thanks. I'm not too savvy, that's probably my big downfall is the savvy part of the world.
Technology?
Yeah, the technology part, but maybe we can do it both ways so that if we do start to hit that top number that we can, I'm not gonna say close people away, but you might have to, right? And we're going live, right? So you have live audience, but plus you're live, so just a.
Okay. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Member Chen. So one thing we would have to look at is Zoom capabilities. We would have to see what our maximum participant number is. I know that we had spoken about that, our staff had talked about it last week, and we haven't found that number yet to see what capacity is on it.
On the actual Zoom?
On the actual Zoom.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Gotcha. Well, there's 2 different ways. We could Zoom the meeting or the Facebook Live, which would be non-capacity issue. Zoom would be a capacity issue on how many registrants you're allowed on your account. Is that correct? Yeah. Councilor Majinski, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just thinking if we just did it as just like what we do now as a live instead of, and having the comments off, but if you wanted to have comments, you email them in prior to, then they could be answered during the let's talk.
The questions?
Yeah. Instead of doing it like a Facebook Live or whatever. Like with this, we'd have hopefully a better audio, and same with Zoom, like not everybody's going to be on mute, so you might have a lot of background noise and it might be a lot of interruptions. So with this, we don't have any interruptions, right? Just a thought.
Yeah. Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I mean, I hope we don't do it in chambers. I think we do it in room 5 or the conference center to allow a maximum of 50 people. And I mean, if Facebook Live is good enough for the BC government, I mean, let's see what we can do. You know, allow people to send in questions to our CEO, and we can handle it. But I mean, if we're having issues of capacity, we can just do 2. You know, let's have an agenda. And like, let's be honest, we're going to have a ton of people coming out for COVID, so let's throw COVID on a completely different agenda, and so you can have those concerns then. I'm not sure if we want to have those. Let's talk about it. We have to if we're overwhelmed.
Absolutely. Honestly, I don't remember 50 people coming to Let's Talk, so Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Member Chen. In conjunction with the Let's Talk, what staff would like to do as well is we would like to add the public consultation for the urban design guidelines as that evening as well, to put that out there, because we are working on that in the final stages of the urban design guidelines, and we do need to go out to public consultations. So we thought it would be a good addition to a Let's Talk meeting as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. 2 birds with 1 stone. So do we want to make a motion for staff to investigate possible dates for Let's Talk next month then? Councillor Kirkowka?
If you're gonna make a motion and second that, just because, I mean, we need to make sure they have enough time to do what they just mentioned, that they are prepared.
Mhm.
So we need to make, maybe they could have a couple different dates.
Yeah,
I guess majority rules, right? If there's enough folks here and some can't make it. I think it's important to get back out to these Let's Talks. I mean, whether, I do think we'll see more out. I mean, yeah, I agree with Councilor Norbury in regards to COVID, and hopefully that's, not the reason they come. I get people's thoughts on them, everybody has a different opinion, but the thing is, just Let's Talk. So we need to get back out to the public and realize, what council's been working on. Some will agree, some won't agree with what we've been doing, or staff. I mean, staff's accomplished a lot this summer, so I think these, budget-wise and all that.
absolutely. Yeah, Councillor Majinski.
Yeah, and if we do two different dates, we should maybe have two different dates, just accommodate for shift workers and have them at two different times.
We have tried accommodating for shift work. We did do, I think it was the first Let's Talk of this term. We pushed off till 8 o'clock at night, I believe, to try and accommodate those shift workers, and it wasn't really effective. Councillor?
But like different weeks, so that we have different crews. So not just time of the day, but for different, because some people are on shift, so
Yeah.
until they're off, so a following week or 2 weeks, just knowing the rotations so that people can come in. And then I definitely think we'd be under capacity if we had two different days.
I like that idea. I mean, it is certainly a disadvantage for those week on, week off people that if everything happens on their week on, they're not able to. I do like that idea of two different dates to try and accommodate that. The uptake up until this point has been low in that regard, but
Yeah, and the longer we have, or the sooner we have this out there, so people know and have these dates, they can plan around it. So the more time we give them, and then they can think about it, or they can talk to their friends and family and say, oh, you know what, think about bringing this up, and then they can talk amongst themselves and then bring it up to us, so it gives them a bit more time to discuss and think about things, so.
Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I don't think we should get too married into having two. I mean, I think this is like an opportunity, but like, I'm not sure if we have an actual need to have two. Like, let's be honest. Let's look back at like what we've had. There's under 10 people at these things, right? So to have two back to back might dilute the people that were going to come. I think it's more of a, well, let's plan it, and if we have an interest list that's beyond, then we need to set up the second one. That's the way I see it, because I mean, I've gone over and above, and you over plan, and all of a sudden, well, now we wasted a bunch of resources because of that. Right? So
Good point.
that's my only concern.
Yeah, I like that idea. Councillor Majinski?
But previous Let's Talks, we ran the whole night too. So we ran out of time when we had our conversation with all of the non-for-profits. It cut into our Let's Talk time.
No?
Yeah, we cut it short because not all of them got to speak.
No?
All of them ran. They all didn't get to have their piece. In the nonprofit, there was 3 or 4 different groups that didn't get to speak, and were going to bring up topics because I was there. And then we ran in because then we cut it short so that we could make the Let's Talk at 6, and then it ran until well after 8 o'clock. And yeah, there was 10 people there, maybe 20. Oh yeah, there was at least 20 people there, but I know for a fact 5 people had multiple things that they wanted to bring up, and they kept on talking. So they took up a lot of the time, and it's the same individuals over and over, right?
Sure.
So, and I think that kind of veered a lot of people off from even speaking because maybe they felt like they had a credible chance to speak.
Possibly. Councillor Kirkhope?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I don't think we have to worry about the non-for-profits because the community center is taking that over. See, they've set a time or a date already to do that. I apologize. I was at the not-for-profit one as well, and yeah, maybe a few not-for-profits didn't have their time allotted, but there was still time for them if they had anything. Most of it went through it. I totally remember that. In regards to the Let's Talk, I believe everybody asked questions they wanted to ask at Let's Talk because it wasn't like we were trying to push ourselves out of there. There was no more questions, so then we started doing the get up and socialize. People wanted to come talk to you personally, they could. So I don't think the Let's Talk was a time crunch thing. I'm not saying the non-profit wasn't, but it did go back around the whole table, and some of those guys didn't even have anything to say. So we don't even have to worry about the non-for-profit now because the community center has taken that part off of whether it's the worship or council as a whole. And it's just let's talk. I agree with Councilor Nobery in regards to, I don't think we should be planning 2 dates. We should possibly be prepared for 2 dates. If all of a sudden the first date is overwhelmed. Because I do believe that if it's overwhelmed, it should be an opportunity for all. Now, my only concern there is if it's overwhelmed or not overwhelmed, is staff planning on 2 different sessions in regards to the thing they want to bring forward. When Councilor Majinski brings forward about catching the on shift and off shift lines in the 2 rotations, is that going to be a concern for staff in regards to that? We're going to be applying 2 different open houses.
With the
Urban design.
urban design guidelines. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Member Chen, Council. So at this time, we hadn't thought of having 2 separate public consultations for the urban design guidelines. We are just kind of in the initial planning stages of it. If we do need to do it, it's a PowerPoint presentation and answering questions. So if we needed to accommodate 2 public consultations for adjustment for shift schedules, it would be something we would definitely consider.
Councilor Majinski?
And this is the reason I brought this up is because when we did our last talk, that's what I heard from the public, is I didn't have the chance to because I was working. And that's why I wanted to bring it up today, so that we give everybody equal opportunity to talk. Otherwise, what's the point of having these let's talks when only certain individuals get to come and talk for the whole time? We want it for everybody, we want to make this fair. And that's the only reason I bring it up, is because what if people are on holidays and they don't get to? But if you schedule 2 weeks later, they might be back from holidays, or,
Yeah, I honestly hope that those people that didn't have a chance to speak last time attend this time, because we have been burnt in the past in that regard. Councillor Norbury?
Is there an opportunity for us to have an agenda and information available ahead of time so people can phone it in, like send us an email with questions? Or,
Yep. Yeah, I believe last time we did post it prior to. I'm not sure the timeline there, Ms. Thompson.
We need 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah, okay. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Bertrand, because a lot of the stuff on the Let's Talk, it's not new information, right? Like we're just informing the public what we know, and if they can still always have the opportunity to reach out to us, reach out to staff throughout the entire year and ask questions as well. We could, I think, if we try to reach everyone, we lose people as well. We're losing what we want.
So is council thinking about October or November? Councillor Norbury?
Mid to late October, I think is a good idea.
Okay. All right, so I'll make a motion that council asks staff to investigate possible dates in October for a Let's Talk. Councillor Kirkowka, second. Any more discussion? Councillor Majinski?
no, I'll hold off for a minute.
Okay. All in favor? Carried, thank you. All right. Adjournment. 6.1, Councillor Kirkowka.
September 13th, 2020, policy adjourned committee meeting will be adjourned.
Seconder, Councillor Majinski. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Thank you, staff. So, didn't have a committee. This is our first in 2 months, right?